Hello, everyone. I'm Frank, and today, as my colleague said, I'm going to present the newest member of the 10 new generation devices, which is the Pager8, a multi-purpose contact control communicator with some useful and practical new functions and features that come handy in many areas. Let me share my screen with you. So this is the Pager8, and let's see what are the main application areas for this product. The Pager8 can be used as a 6-zone standalone alarm control panel with arming and disarming options, or as a standalone transmitter for reporting the state of outputs of machines or switches or any other equipment. You can also use it as an optional communicator for alarm systems which are not equipped with a communicator. Also, it can be used for guarding tasks with camera surveillance options, in building engineering or agriculture for controls based on sensor information, and for solutions that require complex logical operations. About the hardware, the supply voltage range is 12 to 30 volts DC. The consumption is maximum 500 milliamps at 12 volts DC. The relay output maximum load is 1 amps at 24 volts AC or DC. And the dimensions are about 13 by 8 by 4 centimeters. The Pager8 has a 4G modem built in, which is capable for 4G, 3G, and 2G communication as well. It has 6 configurable inputs with normally open, normally closed, or double AOL settings, and also with alarm-specific options such as 24-hour zone, entry-exit delay, and force zone or follow zone. There is an RS-232 port on the device that provides 6 virtual inputs in the software. This can be used to connect up to 6 temperature sensors to the Pager8. The built-in push button is used to restore the factory default settings or to restart the device if necessary. The Pager8 has 4 latching relays, which means that the relays will retain their state also after a power loss. And the relays have normally open, normally closed, and COM terminals, and can be controlled by events and also remotely by users. On the device, you can also find a status LED, an SMA antenna connector, a mini USB connector to connect to the software, and a nano SIM holder. Compared to the other pagers, the other ones have used so far a mini SIM holder. So they use the mini SIM card. Now this pager already needs a nano size SIM card, and while the other pagers had the USB-B connector, this one has the mini USB connector. There are 8 32-bit registers in the device. What is a register? A register is a storage where you can store and read out numbers or values or states. The value range which you can store is from 0 to more than 2 billion, which means that if you are using the register as a timer, you can count down from even up to 68 years if necessary. If you want to use the device to store states, the 8 registers altogether can store up to 256 states. Let's see which are the key functions of the device. As I have mentioned at the beginning, this is a contact control communicator. This means that a change on its inputs will generate an event, and you can associate any action with the event, such as SMS sending, making a call, reporting to monitoring station, or controlling relay outputs, or any other event action available in the device. We will see that later. Arming and disarming is possible via the mobile app, or through phone call, or through the inputs of the device. For this, you can use a key switch, a radio-controlled relay module, an RFID, access control keypad, or a toggle switch, or any other equipment that can provide a dry contact. The Pager8 supports up to 2 partitions, which means that the zones can be separated into 2 different groups, and you can arm and disarm the groups separately. There are freely configurable event and action pairs in the device, and there is possibility to create condition systems and perform complex logical operations using the built-in register. What does it mean that you have freely configurable event action pairs? Let's see. In the settings, you can configure different events from the available list of events, such as system events, like GSM connection events, cloud connection events, internet connection events, USB connection events. Also, we have some special events, such as action test, which you can use to test any action you want. SMS command events, or scheduled action. With a scheduled action, you can generate an event at a specific time of day. This becomes very useful. Also, you have a repeating action event, which will repeat by the interval of time you set. For example, it will generate the event once each 5 minutes. There are also partition type events like arming and disarming, alarm type events, zone type events, zone detection and zone tamper and restore, sensor type events like voltage monitoring and sensor over, sensor below limit, or sensor loss, sensor restore events, switch type events, which are also related to the inputs, just like the zones, but the difference here is that a zone will generate an event only if the partition is armed, while a switch type event will always generate the given event. You also have relay type events, such as relay close, relay open, and register events, where you can set a value in a register. You can check the value over limit, value below limit, or do a bitwise AND operation on the given register value. This means that you can check whether a given bit in the register has value 1 or not. Now, to each event, which you can select here, now, if we have selected the sensor type event, we need to select the given sensor. We have up to 6 sensors here now. And we have to set the temperature for the given sensor. So if the given sensor is over 10 degrees, then do something. Do what? You can send SMS, send email, make a call, report to monitoring station, close, open relay, arm, disarm the partition, generate an alarm, clear the alarm, send push notification, or use register operations such as increment or register decrement, set a register value, do bitwise AND or bitwise OR on the value of the register, and negate the register if necessary. And also you can start a timer in the register and stop a timer in the register. For one event, you can add any number of actions. So this way you can freely configure your pager to do exactly what you plan to. The Pager8 has an active desktop with active tiles, which can be freely customized at will. What does active tile mean? Active tile means that the tiles can show live information, so you can see the live temperature, for example, or you can see the status of the inputs. And you also have widgets, which you can use to control partitions or relay outputs. Now, these tiles can be freely customized. One moment, please. I have to admit new participants. Okay. So you can configure the interface. So you can customize the interface as you wish. You can move tiles. You can add new tiles. In order to add new tiles, you just have to click on a plus sign there, and then you can choose out of 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 4 by 2, or 4 by 4 size tiles. For example, if you want to add a zone, you can choose the zone which you want to add and just click add, and it will be added where you have clicked. You can also add shortcuts to menus, which will navigate you automatically to the given menu. Otherwise, you can access the menus here in the main menu. So for example, if you are using the event settings very often, you don't have to go here in the menu, just add the event settings shortcut, and when you click on that, it will navigate you to the event settings automatically. The same way, you can use the module status or the camera settings or any other menu. On with IP camera support. Now, the picture of up to 16 IP cameras can be viewed in the applications. And the IP cameras can be associated with zones, and the PC application offers viewing the picture of the related cameras when an alarm occurs. How you can do that? Here in the menu, you have the camera settings option. This is where you can add up to 16 IP cameras. The cameras do not need to be connected physically to the device. You only need the link of the camera, the snapshot link, and the stream link. How can you get the link from the camera? There are a number of ways to do that. You can check this in the camera management software, or you can also use the software created by Tel for this purpose. It's the IP Camera Detector, and it is available on our website. Here, if you install this software on a computer, you can check the IP cameras available on the given network where the given PC is connected. After clicking on the Detect IP Cameras button, it will automatically search for the cameras in the local network. And as we can see, it has found 3 cameras. 2 of them are locked with a password, but one of them is open. This one has 2 profiles, a full HD profile and a lower resolution profile. And you can see the stream link and the snapshot link for both profiles here. You can also copy these links to the clipboard using the notes icon next to the link. After you copy the link, as you can see, this software will show you the local IP address of the camera. Now, with this link, you can only access the camera in the local network. If you want to access the camera from the public internet, you need to change this IP address to the external IP address of the router. And of course, in that case, it needs a static IP. Or if you want, you can use the DNS service. And in that case, you will use the domain name registered at the DNS service. After doing this change, you can enter the link here in the software and save the given camera settings. Using the zone checkboxes, you can associate the given camera with given zones. And when an alarm occurs on the given zone, the software will automatically offer viewing the given camera picture. You can view the cameras here in the View Cameras menu. Now I have added twice the same camera. Here you have a filter which you can use to filter the cameras by the associated zones. You can also record the camera pictures one by one, or record all camera pictures at the same time. When a record was done, then you can play back the recording at any time. The recording will be done on the HDD of the given PC. For reporting, you have a number of options, such as text-based notifications, SMS, push message, email with configurable messages, calls up to 8 phone numbers with up to 8 voice messages of 8 seconds each. These can be uploaded from WAV audio files. Reporting the monitoring station is done over the internet to up to 6 receivers, and the device supports the CADC09 and the Telmon protocol. The Telmon is the Tel's custom protocol, which can be used with our receiver, which is called the Telmon receiver. And of course, you have configurable contact ID codes for each event. Now let's see where you can configure these messages and reports. You have a text templates menu where you can configure the messages you want to send. So here you can add, I think, up to 16 messages for each, for emails, for SMS messages, and for push messages separately. In this section, you can configure up to 8 phone numbers. You can add a name to the user. You can enter the phone number of the user. This should be entered in international format. There are options to call the pager and perform different actions using DTMF commands, using the keys of your phone. For this, a password may be required depending on this setting. If this option is checked, the password is not required. If it's unchecked, you need to enter the password before performing any action. You can also set permissions for each user, such as acknowledge on call success or hang up. If this is checked, the given user does not have to acknowledge the given call. It is enough to receive or to decline the call. Otherwise, if it's unchecked, the user needs to press the star button in order to acknowledge the call. Otherwise, the pager will call again. And there is also permission to stop further actions. Using the hash key, the given user has possibility to stop, for example, further calls to further users. Here in the push notifications menu, you will see the registered mobile devices. Now there is no device added, but we will shortly add a device, and I can show you this menu as well. And in the sounds menu, you can upload up to 8 voice messages from WAV files, and then you can select these voice messages for calls in the event settings. There are also 3 built-in voice messages, which are basically siren tones. You can also use these for calls if you want. Okay, and the last one is sensor support. Why am I saying sensor support and not temperature sensor support? Because we are working on it to add new type of sensors as well, such as CO sensors and humidity sensors, for example. But at the moment, the device supports only temperature sensors through the RS-232 port. As I have mentioned, this RS-232 port will create 6 virtual inputs where you can add at least, you can add up to 6 temperature sensors. 2 types of temperature sensors are supported: the EasyTemp Pager8, which is produced by Tel, and the DS18B2 sensor, which is a Dallas one-wire sensor. If you are using the EasyTemp Pager8 sensors, you have to do the wiring in serial wiring, which means that the data output wire of each sensor should be connected to the data input of the next sensor, and so on. And the data output of the last sensor should be connected to the RS-232 port. These sensors have 4 wires, 2 power wires, 1 data input, and 1 data output. Now, for the DS18B20 sensors, you can connect these sensors in parallel, but for this, you also need a one-wire interface, which will be soon available in our product range. So you can connect the sensors in parallel to the interface, and then the TX output of the interface should be connected to the RX input on the Pager8. And of course, the power should be also connected, the V+ and V-, but you can connect that in parallel with the V+ and V- power on the device. The mobile application is called Pager Control, and it is available on Google Play for Android phones and in the App Store for iPhones and iPads. You can download the mobile application for free. It is compatible with Pager7 and Pager8 devices as well, and you can register up to 8 mobile devices, both in the Pager8 and in the Pager7. Now, let's see how we can register the mobile application. For this, I will share my phone screen. So the pager control application, we can register by clicking on the plus button at the bottom. What we need to enter here is the device name, which is a custom name. Okay. And we also need the hardware identifier of the given device, which you can also enter manually from the label on the back of the device. It's this in the red box. Or you can read the QR code, which is available in the programming software in the module status and module info menu. There it is. Okay, now I'm going to read the QR code because it's much faster and much easier. And an optional password is also required. If you do not enter the password, the application will also prompt for a password when you want to connect to the given device. You can either use the admin password or the user password. There are two passwords, admin and user. The admin password is 1111 and the user password is 2222. And it has registered in the Pager8. After you select the Pager8, it will automatically read the settings from the device, and based on that, will load a default layout. As you can see, now 3 zone inputs are configured and 6 temperature sensors. Here in the mobile application, you can also customize these tiles. You can delete tiles, add new tiles, or you can also move tiles. For example, if you want, you can add a camera picture. Or you can add partition tiles. You can add relay tiles from the 4 relays. You can add temperature sensor tiles. And also register tiles, which will show you the actual value in the given register. Here you also have 1x1, 2x2, 4x2, and 4x4 tiles. Of course, bigger tiles will show more information and smaller tiles will show less information. Voice control is also available in the mobile application. You can use that by tapping on the microphone at the top of the page. The commands to be used is turn or switch on, turn or switch off, and arm or disarm. For example, if you want to control the heating, just have to say turn on heating. Turn on heating. And it has turned on the heating. We can see the same in the PC application. So if we turn on or off anything in the mobile application, that will turn on and off automatically in the PC application as well. For example, turning on the lights. So you can customize these active desktop just like in the PC software. Okay, let's see how we can configure push notification to be sent when an input is activated. For this, we will use one of the inputs. So let's go to the event settings. So now we have already registered the mobile application. So here in the push notification menu, you can find the given mobile application, mobile device, and you can also rename this device. And now let's go to the event settings. So what do we need to do? We need a zone detection event. Let's say let it be the entrance, add event, and for this event, we will configure a push notification to Frank's phone, and we select one of the already added text messages, or you can also add a new text message right here. Okay, we also toggle an alarm, and let's also activate a relay output. That is the output number 3. We can do that for let's say 3 minutes or any other time setting, or just turn it on and then turn it back off using another action. Let it be now 5 seconds. Yes. Now if we arm the partition, and at the same time, I want to show you what happens on this side. So we press the button on input 1, and an alarm is generated, and the push notification also arrived. As you can see, the PC application automatically offered viewing the related camera. So if we press on the camera button, it will automatically open the camera menu and will show the picture of the camera associated with that zone. And you can immediately record the picture if you want. You can stop the alarm in the PC application or on the mobile application as well. Let's do the same with the temperature sensor. So now we delete this and add a temperature sensor type event. Let it be sensor over limit. Let it be the first sensor, and let's say 26 degrees. Send a push notification to Frank's phone. Temperature beyond limit. And we can also add a new one below limit, the same sensor, below 26, and send a push notification to Frank's phone, temperature below limit. Okay, and let's see how this works. try to show you. We start to warm up this temperature sensor. And there is the message temperature beyond limit. And now let's cool it down. Temperature sensor below limit. Okay, so it's that easy to configure events in the Pager8. Now, let's go through the PC software and check the options which we have not seen yet. In the module status menu, you can view the input states, all the 6 inputs, and the sensor states, the 6 virtual inputs. Here on the system connector, you can see some icons which you can select for each input separately. We will see that in the input settings menu. In the relay states menu, you can view the status of the 4 relay outputs. In the partitions menu, the status of the 2 partitions. And in the connections menu, this is very important when you install the pager, you can view the connection status, the USB, GSM operator, internet, and cloud connection status. Also the time, the system time of the pager, and the date. You can also see the supply voltage and the value of the GSM signal here. The module info menu gives you information about the firmware version of the Pager8 and the version of the software itself. You can also see the bootloader version. Basically, you do not need this, but this is an information for us so that we know what bootloader the given pager is using. The Icc Id of the SIM card installed, the current operator, and a location and cell ID, which you can use on some pages on the internet to locate the device. So it can be used for positioning. And in the register status, you can see the status of the 8 registers, the values which are actually stored in the registers. In the inputs and outputs menu, you can configure the input settings. Here you can add a name to each input. You can select an icon for each input. And you can select the input type. So whether you are using it as a zone input, normally open, normally closed, and with an end-of-line resistor, or if you are using it as a switch input, also normally closed and normally open. In this section, you can configure the sensitivity of the given input. Milliseconds, seconds, and minutes. Okay. The inputs which have been set as zone inputs have some additional settings here at the bottom. For each zone, you can add a partition. So you can assign the zone to a partition, partition 1, partition 2, or both partitions. You can enable or disable the given input. This is a bypass option. The given input can be a 24-hour zone, a follow zone, or a force zone. Now, 24-hour zone means that it will generate an event also if the given partition is not armed. A follow zone will follow the properties of the first violated zone. So, for example, if the first violated zone was an entry delay zone, in that case, the follow zone will also be an entry delay zone. Otherwise, it will be an instant zone. And the force zone will allow you to arm the given partition also if the given zone is violated at that time. Entry and exit delay is also available for each zone in seconds or minutes. Below the physical inputs, you can see the virtual inputs, which are the temperature sensor inputs. Here you can also add a name for each temperature sensor. You can select whether temperature sensor is used or not. And you can also add an icon to the given temperature sensor. And this setting is the threshold for a sensor loss and sensor restore event. So if the signal is lost for at least 30 seconds, the pager will generate sensor loss event. When you select an icon for a given zone, it will automatically change the icon here on the system connector. So this makes identifying easier. In the output settings, you can configure the outputs. An output can be bistable or timed. Bistable means that it has two stable states. So if you turn it on, it will stay turned on. If you turn it off, it will stay turned off. If you set it as a time output, in that case, you can configure for how much time the given output should be activated. This is available in seconds, minutes, and hours as well. And you can also change the name of the given output and add an icon to the output. In the partition settings, you can configure the two partitions. You can change the name of the partition, or the partition can be always armed, which is almost the same as the 24-hour zone, but for the whole partition. So all zones in the given partition will be always armed. We have already seen the cameras. We have seen the event settings and the text templates also, the emails also. So that's where you can add email addresses and the surveillance settings. Now here you can add up to 6 receivers. For each receiver, you can configure the name. You can select the protocol, which can be the Telmon or the CLDC09. You can set the user account ID. The group ID is not necessary. You can set the supervision message interval in seconds, minutes, or hours. Also, the IP address or URL of the given receiver is necessary. The network protocol, TCP or UDP, and the communication port of the given receiver. Of course, you can also delete the receiver at any time. Now, receivers are grouped into schemas. So if you, for example, want to send alarm messages only to the alarm monitoring station and service messages only to a technical monitoring station, you can do that using the schemas. So for example, if you add more than 2 receivers, in that case, in a new schema, you can change the priority of the receivers so that the given schema will be, if you add the given schema to a service event, in that case, you can select the service monitoring station as primary and others as backup. So the one that is not checked is the primary, the one that is checked is the backup receiver. If the event would be sent to the primary receiver, it will not be sent to the backup. But if it fails to be sent, then it will try to send to the backup receiver. In the alarm settings menu, you can set the maximum alarming time. Well, this is the time that the given event will trigger an alarm for. So if an alarm is triggered, it will last for 3 minutes. You can also clear the alarm with another event still before 3 minutes. The maximum number of alarms per zone is a limitation that you can set. For example, if you set 3, in that case, only 3 alarms will be accepted on each zone, from arming to disarming the given partition. When you arm again the partition, then this counter is reset, and again, 3 alarms can be triggered. Also, if you have 24-hour zones, you can configure a restriction in time, which means that, for example, 1 hour, if there was already an alarm in a zone, in a 24-hour zone, then no further alarms will be accepted for 1 hour. Okay. We have already seen the register settings where you can add a name to the registers. In the event logs menu, you can see all the events which have occurred in the device. Also, if there are details, you can see those by opening the given report. You can export the logs to file if necessary. It will create a CSV file. In the Debug Logs menu, you can check the operation of the device. You can see 80 commands or debug information and any other information. Now, here we can see that the temperature values are arriving from the temperature sensors, which are numbered as the T0, T1, T2, T3. So we have 4 temperature sensors connected at the moment. Here in the configuration menu, you can save the actual configuration to file. You can also select which sections to be saved. And with the load configuration from file option, you can restore the settings from file. And here you can also select which options to be, or which sections to be loaded. Of course, for that, you need to load the file first. Here in the SMS Commands menu, you can add custom SMS messages. If you send these messages to the pager will interpret this as a command, and you can configure different actions to these events in the event settings menu. There is a custom SMS command. There it is. Custom SMS command event, and you can select which command to set and add any action you wish. Okay, so with this, we went through the software, and now I have a few examples of use which will show you how registers can be used. The first example of use is a cold storage monitoring. The temperature in the cold storage should be under 10 degrees, and an automatic defrosting is performed periodically to prevent ice formation. When this occurs, the temperature increases beyond 10 degrees, but this condition shall not last longer than 45 minutes. So what we have to do is monitor the temperature and generate an alarm if the temperature exceeds 10 degrees beyond the frosting period. Now let's see how we can configure this in the software. Okay, so let's clear the settings. What do we have to do beyond 10 degrees? We have to send a message that automatic defrosting is in progress. How do we do that? We select the sensor type event, sensor over limit, select the given sensor, and 10 degrees add. What to do? Send a push notification. Automatic defrosting is in progress. Okay, this is ready. What do we also have to do beyond 10 degrees? We have to start a countdown timer from 45 minutes. For this, we will use a register. Sorry, here. Add new action. Sorry, I just can't see what is below. Okay, start timer. Let's say in register 1 from 45 minutes. That is 2700 seconds. Okay, what do we do next? Below 10 degrees, we need to send a message that normal cooling is in progress. So sensor below limit, the same sensor, below 10 degrees, send a push message, normal cooling. And also we need to stop the timer and reset the value back to 45 minutes. How do we do that? Timer stop in register 1 and set register value back to 45 minutes. Now, if the register value reaches 0, it means that the temperature is still above 10 degrees after 45 minutes. Now, in this case, we need to control the output, let's say activate a local siren and send a push message that the temperature is beyond 10 degrees and the intervention is needed. Now, for this, we will use the register value equals event. If it equals 0, then relay close. Let's say for 3 minutes. And at the same time, send a push notification that intervention is needed. Okay, so that's all, and we have configured everything we need for this task. Now, in this table, you can see that there are red dots here and there. This helps you to have a clear overview on the settings. These dots mean that there is a setting for that event in that place. For example, here we have a relay close setting, and here we have push notification settings, and here we have register operations. Of course, you can open the given event again, and you can also edit the temperature, for example, if you want to change it, or you can remove any action or change the settings of any action you want. Okay, let's see the next one, elderly monitoring. Well, in elderly care, the task is to monitor the person's activity without disturbing his or her life. Now, how can we do this? What is almost certain is that the person has a refrigerator, which he or she will likely open at least once a day. And it is also certain that we'll use the restroom, where we can also monitor the door openings. Let's suppose that these activities will occur at least once every 4 hours. What do? We install opening sensors on the refrigerator and on the restroom doors. Now there is one problem, that we only need to monitor the door openings between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. because the person will probably be sleeping during the night. So the task is to generate an alarm if there is no fridge or restroom door opening within 4 hours and at least once every 4 hours and only between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Now, as you can see, this is a complex task that cannot be solved with an alarm control panel because it is not the zone detection, but the zone detection absence that needs to be monitored. Moreover, this must be done only within a certain time interval of the day and in certain periods only. Now let's see how we can configure this in the software. At 6 a.m., we have to start a countdown timer in a register from 4 hours. For this, we will use the scheduled action event. So at 6 a.m., we start a countdown timer in register 1. Okay, we need to do that from 4 hours. That is 14,400 seconds. Okay. Now, if any of the doors open, the refrigerator door or the restroom door opens, we need to reset this timer back to 4 hours. Okay, first we will need to change the input settings. So let this be refrigerator door and not a zone input, but a switch input. And the other one, the restroom door, also a switch input. Okay, back to the settings. So if the refrigerator door opens, then we need to reset the timer, which means register value equals 14,400 seconds. Okay, the same for the restroom. Now, at 10 p.m., we need to stop the timer and reset the value back to 4 hours. We will do this again using the scheduled action event. Register timer stop, and register 1, and set register value back to 4 hours. Okay. So what happens if any of the doors open? The time will be reset back to 4 hours, and at 10 o'clock in the afternoon, also it will be reset to 4 hours. Now, if the counter reaches 0, which means that none of the doors has been opened, in that case, we need to generate an alarm. So if register value 1 equals 0, generate an alarm, and also you can send push notification, make a call, or any other report, for example, report to monitoring station. That's where you can select the contact ID event code for the given report. You also have a search tool where you can search for event name or event code. For example, if we want personal emergency, in that case, this event will be reported to the monitoring station. And we are done. Now let's see the next one. CO level monitoring in a parking garage. There is a parking garage with a maximum of 200 spaces and with 2 entrance and 2 exit gates. The task is to generate an alarm and switch on the ventilation when there are more than 100 cars in the parking garage. The ventilation must also be switched on when the CO level reaches a certain value. And when this occurs, the Pager8 will receive a dry contact from the CO sensor or the CO detection system. Let's see how we can configure this. We will use input number 1 to detect the dry contact from the CO sensor, and this will generate an alarm and will turn the ventilation on using a relay output. We will use input 2 and input 3 to detect the dry contact from the photobeam sensors installed on the entrance gates. So with this, we will count the number of cars coming in the parking garage. We will use input 4 and 5 to detect the dry contact from the photobeam sensors installed on the exit gates. So we will use this to count the leaving cars. Now let's start to configure this. We need some more inputs with switch type first. This will likely be normally closed switch, but now I'm selecting normally open switch just not to generate an alarm because I have a normally open switch on the input right now. Okay, and these are already normally open switches. Okay. We can also add a name to the inputs. So this will be the CO sensor. Exit 1 and exit 2 sensors. Now, so what happens if the CO sensor sends an alarm? In this case, we need to generate an alarm and turn on the ventilation. Okay, so generate alarm and relay close. Let's say we will rename the relays. Okay, so now it shows ventilation, and let's turn ventilation on for 1 hour. Of course, ventilation can be also turned off using another event or another action. Okay, let's see the entry beam sensors and exit beam sensors. We have to add both. Exit 1 and exit 2. Okay, entry beam sensors need to increment the value of the register, and exit sensors need to decrement the value of the registers. This way, we will count the incoming and leaving vehicles. Increment register by 1. Increment same register by 1. Okay, and the exits will decrement the register. Okay, now we have a problem. We do not know in advance how many cars are in the parking garage when we install the system. So for this, we will configure security setting, safety setting. So if the value of the register is less than 0, we will reset it to 0. At the end of the day, probably all cars will leave and the parking garage will be empty. And with this setting, the value of the register will be for sure 0 by the end of the day. Of course, if we know how many cars are inside, we can set the number of the cars in the register. We can use the action test event for this. For example, we can set the register value. Let's say we know that there are 95 cars in the car park. And if you press the action test button, this event will occur and will set the register to 95. Now, if we check the register value, we can see that it is 0. And if we go back and click on the action test, now we can see that it is 95. Now I will delete it because it's not necessary. So we need to reset the register to 0 if it goes below 0. How do we do that? Using the register below limit. So if it goes below 0, in that case, set register value back to 0. Okay, and now if the value of the register is higher than 100, which means that we have at least 100 cars in the parking garage, we need to generate an alarm and turn the ventilation on. How do we do that? Register over limit, same register, 100, add event, generate alarm, and turn ventilation on. Now, just to demonstrate, I will turn ventilation on for just 5 seconds. Let me share the screen of my phone again. Okay, so we have input 2 and 3, which will increment the register. And when it reaches 100, the ventilation relay should turn on and an alarm should occur. Let's see. Okay, 101 cars, and we have an alarm, and the ventilation has switched on for 5 seconds. Okay, let's see the next example of use. It's a foil tent, and we need to do temperature monitoring. What we want to do is measure the temperature in the tent in 4 distant places using 4 sensors. The task is to generate an alarm and turn heating on if the temperature falls below 5 degrees in much of the tent, which is at least on 3 sensors, and when this persists at least for 15 minutes. Now, if it is only colder at fewer points, it makes no sense to turn on the heating because the temperature will equalize over time. So therefore, we need to count the sensors that show the temperature below 5 degrees. Let's see how can we do this. Go back to the settings and delete all settings. Okay. Let's rename the temperature sensors. Okay. So we have 4 temperature sensors, and if the temperature goes below 5 degrees, so sensor information, sensor below limit, sorry, selected the wrong sensor, sensor below limit, 5. We need to do that for the 4 sensors. What do we need to do here? We need to count the sensors which show the temperature below 5 degrees. So we will use a register and increment the register value by 1 in case of each sensor. Okay, now if the temperature goes beyond 5 degrees, we need to decrement the given register value. So we will select the sensor over limit. Five degrees, the same for the 4 sensors. And this will decrement the register value by 1. Okay, now if register 1 goes beyond limit, so on at least 3 sensors we have a temperature below 5 degrees. In that case, we need to start a timer from 15 minutes in another register. So how we do this? If register value is over limit, it's over 2, which means on at least 3 sensors. So when it reaches 3, that means over 2. We need to start a timer. In a different register, of course, from 15 minutes, which is 900 seconds. If register 1 goes below 3, we need to stop the timer because in this case, there are less than 3 sensors that show the temperature below 5 degrees. So register below limit, still register 1, below 3. Stop the timer in register, register 2. Okay, what we also need to do is reset the timer back to 900. So register value for register 2 is 900. Now, if register 2 reaches 0, it means that we are over 15 minutes and there are still 3 sensors that show a temperature below 5 degrees. So we need to turn heating on by activating a relay output. So register value equals register 2 in that case, we turn heating on, relay close, heating. Now we will not turn off heat or we will not set a time for heating, we will turn it off with the next event. So, and if register 1 equals 0, we will turn heating off. Using the relay open action. Now, we also need a safety setting for register 1 to prevent it from going below 0. If register 1 is below limit, then reset the register value back to 0. And that's all we need to configure for this task. There's one more left I didn't show you yet for the register actions. When you are working with binary values, you can also use the bit mask window. where you can set the binary values for each bit separately. So you have 32 bits for that register, and you can set the bits one by one if you need. Of course, this will be converted to a decimal value, and that's what will be entered in the box, in the value box. And at the end, we have a comparison of the pager products. Let's see which are the key differences between the Pager8, Pager7, and the Pager4. The desktop and the mobile application with active tiles is available both in the Pager8 and Pager7, while the Pager4 has a conventional user interface. The IP camera support in Pager7 and Pager8 is 16 cameras, while in Pager4 is 4 cameras only. IP camera recording and playback in the desktop application is available only in the Pager8 and Pager7. The Pager8 and Pager7 supports up to 2 partitions, while the Pager4 can use only 1 partition. Temperature sensor support. The Pager8 supports the EasyTemp, Pager8 temperature sensors, and the DS18B20, while the Pager7 only supports the EasyTemp sensors, and the Pager4 does not support temperature sensors. Registers are only available in the Pager8, and there is a big difference in the hardware. The Pager7 and the Pager4 uses the same hardware, so they have exactly the same parameters. They use a mini SIM card, an FME antenna connector, a USB-B connector, and there are 2 versions of the hardware, one with 6 inputs and 1 output, and one with 4 inputs and 2 relay outputs, while the Pager8 is a brand new hardware with a nano SIM, SMA, antenna connector, USB, mini connector, and 6 virtual sensor inputs on the serial port, 4 latching relay outputs, and 6 physical inputs, and the 4 outputs, of course, which I have already mentioned.